Welcome back to the Business Immigration Benchmark. I'm your host, Laura Blanaers. Today we're chatting RFP, Request for Proposal. And you might ask, Laura, that's not an immigration legal term. And you would be right. This is a listener topic submission. So thank you for the feedback. This topic suggestion came from a conversation about in-house mobility, in-house immigration specialists struggling to understand what's all involved with an RFP and maybe a little too embarrassed to ask for, a 101. So that's what it is. And if you're an expert or a seasoned in-house immigration or global mobility specialist who's led RFPs, RFIs, we want you to come on the show and tell us about your experience and what was all involved and how you got it off the ground, your successes. Want to celebrate that and hear about what it's like, from an in-house perspective. So with that, we're going to dive right into the RFP process and how to make it meaningful for you and your organization. We'll start with some term definitions. A term you might hear, RFI, request for information, is usually the intro or dipping your toes in the water, so to speak, to introducing your program to the market and having firms and vendors introduce or reintroduce themselves to your organization. So, RFI process is introductory in nature. And generally, in my experience, when companies are entertaining RFIs, they usually invite several vendors to the tune of, up to 10. And I think an RFI can be really helpful, even if you're not sure you're going to change vendors. There are a lot of new leaders at firms or vendors that you might want to hear from. You might want to just take a pulse on how vendors or firms are introducing their technology or what their technology offering looks like to hear what's on the marketplace. So an RFI does not require at all, in fact, none of this requires you change vendors, but rather an RFI is a nice sort of introductory process to understand, what's going on in the market. I will say, generally what's requested in an RFI is usually like a firm overview or an executive summary. So there's not necessarily specific questions that your organization would ask. You could, I mean, it's your process, but generally, the lift from a vendor, in my experience, is you're submitting, standard executive summary and a fee schedule. I want to make a quick note. If you're just looking for fee schedules or you're looking to change vendors because of fee pressures, budgetary constraints within your organization, my recommendation would be to not necessarily embark on a big, long, burdensome RFI or RFP process, but rather go back to your vendor and talk about the constraints you're under. If it's pressure from, leadership to decrease costs, talk to your partner about how you can work together. If there has been growth in your program, perhaps now you are eligible for, fee discounts because the volume has gone up. That's a common one to chat about. Or, if there is some sort of work sharing where vendor can decrease fees and, change their sort of service model with you. I think if you're just feeling pressure for fees, but the service, the technology is meeting your expectations, I think going through an RFP or an RFI process just for fees, your first step should be circle back with your current vendor. Okay. RFP, defining the term, request for proposal. Well, this is a little bit more formal of a process, and usually, but not always, the company would have completed an RFI for, 7 to 10 vendors and then selected the top 3 to 4. That's not to say that you couldn't do an RFP process with up to 10 vendors. It's just a lot of work to sort of sift through more detailed data. So in my experience, generally the RFP process whittles down to, 3, 4, maybe 5 firms to participate. And it's broken down into, roughly 5 stages. The first is the company delivers questions for vendors. So here's a statement about our company, and here are the questions that we want you as the vendor to answer. Then there's some period where the company entertains like clarifications from vendors. So vendors might have like a week, 2 weeks to sort of review all of the documentation and summaries that the company has provided as part of the RFP process. And the vendor gets to ask clarifying questions. Maybe it's about volume, maybe it's about definition of terms in your document. And then the company returns answers to those questions to all participating law firms and vendors. And then the vendors submit their sort of response package by the deadline set by the company. And so generally, timelines can be, a month, 2 months. It's kind of up to the company how quickly they want to move along the process, but they submit it by a deadline. And then the company reviews those submissions, and generally the company selects like 2 or 3 vendors to do a sort of second round presentation. So this is where the vendor would present generally their tech demo and then any kind of scenario or follow-up questions that the company has on the submission. I've seen very tailored requests for presentations based on, the submission I provided. I've seen general follow-up presentation requests where the company requires an in-house, demo, as well as responses to scenarios that they submit to all of the second round vendor participants. And then finally, the final stage is that the company selects a vendor and then begins the implementation phase. So, how do we make this process meaningful? We want to make sure that if you're embarking in a request for proposal, RFP, that you're using your time, your admin support in a really meaningful way. And the best way to do that is to define the goal of the RFP. Like I said initially, if your goal is just to reduce fees, I think your best and most efficient step would be to circle back with your current vendor and have a conversation about what constraints you're up against to ensure a most efficient and honestly supportive environment to achieve your budgetary goals, given the constraints you're up against, whether that's pushback from leadership. Having that first conversation with your current vendor is going to be honestly the most productive that you can have. Now, a good reason to go to RFP, could be many. It could be you're looking for consolidation of programs, it could be for new technology offerings. There's no one answer, but make sure you've defined that within your organization so that you can target the questions and target the process around the goals you're looking to achieve with the process and potentially a new vendor. The definition of your goals will lead to better questions and better conversations. And I'll give you an example. So in 2024, we responded to an RFP for a program that had a very internationally complex arrangement or structure. And there were many entities globally and in the US that were looking to consolidate to one vendor. So historically, here, this company was a large holding company that had the mobility managed at the individual entity level. And with change in leadership, with their also new mergers and acquisition strategy in the coming years, they wanted to consolidate to ensure compliance and reporting. So their questions in the RFP were hyper specific around the scenario that they were, building up to. Some of these questions describe how your company or how your law firm can support an internationally complex organization and then broke down different scenarios that they were going through globally. And so that was a very specific insight for, the vendor to understand their company and whether we would be a good fit, but then also a very clear answer from our team and from other law firms to understand how we could support this organization. So I can appreciate when the company has very like clear goals with where they're going and what the RFP is meant to support with the, at the end of the implementation, the vendor should be able to support this complex organization and be able to sort of put it in a better compliance step. Some of the other sort of best questions that maybe didn't have the specific goal, but led to the goal of the overall organization in the RFP were, questions like describe the legal team's communication style. How frequently does the team rely on templated emails? Provide a template approval email. And so, sort of, this three-part question really would take the temperature of, the vendor's ability to communicate in the way that the company wants or reflects the company's values and style. I think also seeing a template email is really helpful to sort of understand like what does the vendor see as sort of minimally instructive details, because if you sort of see that flavor on an approval template, you can get a sense of what, their other communications when leveraging templates because we all do what it would look like. So I thought that was a really helpful and an excellent question to get at sort of the service and to get at the sort of culture within the firm about communication. I also think questions like sample filing letters of support or sample template emails, like I said, are super helpful because, the company's going to show you how they practice or the vendor's going to show you how they practice rather. And, I think that's important because sometimes the way we talk about the way we practice can look or sound a little different than, what's actually in the documentation and what the foreign national experience is. Some bad questions, things to avoid are, overly generic questions. I think this often occurs when procurement is leading the RFP. And I'll give you an example. So recently we were asked to complete a statement of work, pursuant to a standard master services agreement that's an exhibit within their master services agreement. And the statement of work clearly is meant for a different type of purchase like technology services or discrete like project completion because the statement of work, the way the template looks, I'm entering a lot of not applicable because it doesn't apply to the services for US or global immigration. So I think procurement at some organizations, large and small, may be required to drive the process for you. So make sure you're partnering with them to make sure that the requests procurement are giving like reflect the services that you're purchasing. And so sometimes we see these mismatch in the type of questions or templates that we're required to complete don't really match what a statement of work would look like for immigration vendors. So just something to think about because those often end up overly generic or honestly just like not applicable to global mobility services. And then this one, I don't know if it's like a hot take or not, but I just think firm interest statements or description of awards, like to me, I find that as a meaningless description within the RFP process. Like, surely you've been on the company's website, surely you've been on the firm's website, or honestly, a lot of awards these days are pay to play. So, in my estimation, I don't know that this wins the day. I don't know that this is an important question to include. So, I think just axe it. Don't include it because all firms have really excellent practitioners that win lots of awards and, they're happy to tell you about it, but I don't know that it's meaningful for the service that you as the in-house mobility leader will see. So that's my 2 cents. Love to hear if you disagree. The best questions that I've seen on, the request for proposal process, in addition to sort of these targeted ones that clearly, reflect the goals of the company going through the process, was on a second round. This was a company that we were invited to go back to do the sort of oral presentations, do the tech demo. The company invited a foreign national from their program to join the call and be like the foreign national representative. And one, I thought that was so cool because the foreign national was asking questions to our team about, how is these things done? How would I experience, your platform? How would I get my approval notice so that we were able to, demo things that the foreign national end user would use. And then, the company's foreign national representative came back and presumably gave them feedback. And I just think that's so cool because there is sort of two users, maybe more to the global mobility vendor, right? There is the global mobility leader, you, who's leading the process. And then there's the foreign national population that's also sort of using the services. And I thought that was the first that I've ever seen that in my practice to have that foreign national come on and ask questions that were really just how would I experience this so that they could give feedback to the company as part of their evaluation process. So that was super cool and very unique. I've only seen that once. Some questions that I wish were asked. Well, I'll tell you, the first is I wish companies would ask for like a sample invoice or a sample breakdown for how they would be billed for their common uses. So like use cases. So H&B, for example, when I initiate an H&B, how and when will I be billed? Like what does that look like within the firm's billing cycle. Because I think sometimes vendors, law firms will price things differently even though they look the same. So, what am I trying to say here? H-1B versus H-1B from firm to firm might not be the same, and that's because some firms and firms I've worked at will, charge an H-1B line item, and some will charge a labor condition application line item, and some might charge a public access file, compilation line item. So, you really wanna understand when someone says an H-1B is X amount, what's all included with that? And I think even just sort of the brief descriptions that the fee schedules may provide to you in the RFP process still might not be super descriptive for you to understand that when you initiate an H-1B, what is due when? And so I would love to see a question that sort of asks us, provide us a sample invoice for an H-1B and the timing of when these invoices would be issued. Because there's also, government fees, and that might be later issued or later billed. So just I think that would be really helpful for you as an in-house global mobility professional to understand, like, what exactly you're comparing, the vendors against if you're fee sensitive, which, let's be real, every program is or should be. So I think that would be really helpful to compare H-1B to H-1B cross, vendors. So, okay, Laura, you said that you'd make this helpful and practical, right? Well, hopefully, the overview of what's involved in the process, my take on what works, what doesn't work in the vendor experience is helpful to you all. But I'll go one further. If you're looking for like a template RFP, ping me on LinkedIn. I'd love to share with you what they look like, what, a real RFP, of course, redacted, but just, like a general RFP. So you can see literally the questions that are asked and what I think, has done a good job of sort of surveying a vendor. Typically the template includes something like account management, service delivery, pricing, invoicing process, reporting, section on technology and innovation, and then implementation. So I'd be happy to share a template with you. Just ping me on LinkedIn and I'll flip that over to you. If you have my email, feel free to email me as well. And for those listeners that have run an RFP, who have led the process, I'd love to hear from you. Come on the show so we could hear about what went well, what was difficult, what challenges you faced in the RFP process, so we could dive in further with an expert on the in-house side. Well, that's it from me at the Business Immigration Benchmark. We'll catch you next time.